If you'd have told me when I was 10 on my school playground that we'd be getting a new Star Wars movie every year, I would have run away. Stranger danger, you creepo.
Think. You want to make that move. You want to make that move. You made that move, okay. I guess I'll have to destroy that little guy. Somehow I never get bored with winning. No, you can't wipe them off. They're holograms. Hey, Chewie, relax. Hey, try to compose yourself. Look, all you gotta do is think a few moves ahead, anticipate your opponent. There's a lesson to be learned here.
Solo, a Star Wars story, is a story about the early adventures of Han Solo. A little bit of Chewbacca in there, maybe some other elements of the Star Wars universe as well. It also ushers in a brand new era in Star Wars movies with these new Star Wars stories coming out, new movies every year. So, is that going to usher in a wonderful era of Star Wars or a more boring era of Star Wars? Well, I think there's people on both sides who vehemently believe what they believe, but here's what I believe with 5 things you might want to know about Solo, a Star Wars story. I had a good enough time at this movie. It's not one of my favorite Star Wars movies, and there's some reasons for that that we will get into, but I have to start here. I love Star Wars. I grew up with the original films. They were integrated into me in a lot of ways, and I think that's just a thing that they're going to have going for them whenever they make these movies and whenever I'm watching them is I love this universe. And I think this movie brings us into this universe in a fun new way. I enjoyed seeing the little winks to characters and hearing the lines, you know, that you may have heard in other movies, but said in a different way, kind of playing on the nostalgia and that kind of stuff. And I know for some that can get annoying, but for me, I love it. And it wasn't just that stuff. It's the fact that we're living in this place and getting a fuller understanding of it. There are many elements of this one, like I think was true with Rogue One as well, where it's informing so much of the other movies that it almost changes the way you watch them. I think that happened more in Rogue One than happens here, but it's definitely here, and I definitely like that. I also have to say, for all the hubbub, Alden Ehrenreich is great as Han Solo. I think he's wonderful. I think he's the best thing as far as the acting department of this goes. I mean, Emilia Clarke is wonderful as the love interest. Woody Harrelson is fine. He's doing his Woody Harrelson thing. It's great to see Chewbacca back. All that's fine. But I loved the way that Alden embodied this. I think he both feels like the Han Solo you know and also a Han Solo you don't know, because it was so early on, and you can see how the years have worn on Han Solo since this time in his life. There's an optimism to him that is different and interesting and fun, but yet still feels completely Han Solo to me. I feel like Alden did a wonderful job with this performance. I feel like any of those rumors that that wasn't going to be the case can be put to rest. He's really good here. So let's take a second here in the middle to stop and talk about Star Wars fatigue. This is a phrase I've been hearing more and more, and I'm going to give this a yellow because I'm not feeling it. I tell you what, they could release a Star Wars movie every 3 months as far as I was concerned. And honestly, with the TV shows like Rebels and before that Clone Wars and the new TV show that's coming out, I'm on board. Like I said, I love this universe, but I know there are some who are feeling like there's too much Star Wars. And to me, that's like saying too much pizza. Like, I'm going to eat pizza every meal if it's in front of me. It's just one of those things. Star Wars is that good to me. So I guess this is a fair warning for you. If you are feeling Star Wars fatigue, I think this movie especially is going to pile that on further for you. But if you aren't and you're like me, I don't think you're going to feel it at all. So this isn't a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination. There's quite a bit that can put you off about this. Let's start here. I don't think there's much of a story here. Certainly not much of a way to connect to these characters. I didn't feel connected to anybody in this movie, except for Han Solo and maybe Chewbacca, and I wonder if that's just because I know their characters beyond this. I think there's a little more meat for them here than anybody else around them, but the other characters who are given these interesting story moments where the story turns on their actions and what they're doing, it doesn't hit you as hard because you don't necessarily understand their motives as well. You don't know who they are, what they have done to come to this place, to make this decision. And that goes for almost all of the surrounding characters, some of which I've mentioned, like Woody Harrelson and Emilia Clarke. In any of the others, it just feels, except for maybe Lando, and again, we know him from the other movies, and of course Donald Glover does a great job here. But I have to say, I really missed that personal connection to these characters. I wasn't invested in the story because really, it's just kind of a bunch of action scenes in a movie that kind of go somewhere, but you don't really feel the impact of who these characters are, and I miss that. And because of that, and I can't believe I'm saying this, this movie's kind of boring at places. There's just not a lot to keep me invested in the down moments between the action beats, which I found perfectly satisfying, perfectly interesting. There was one that was especially spectacular, but I just felt like it dragged any time we weren't involved in action. I think that has to do with the character stuff that I talked about. I think it has to do with the story stuff that we've talked about. I also think it has to do with the fact that this is a different kind of Star Wars movie, unlike many of the others. There aren't any really lightsabers here to speak of. There are no force powers here to speak of. So some of those touchstones that you have with the Star Wars universe are for the most part missing. And so you don't have necessarily those kind of moments to draw you in. And so it really has to rely on all those other things that just aren't quite there. And overall, I can't believe, but I found myself bored through a lot of this movie. Overall, though, I still had a pleasant enough time because of Han Solo, because of the Star Wars universe, because of those action scenes, which are really fun. I did manage to have a good enough time to give this a B-. Thanks for checking out this Your Movie Friend review. We'll get to the best ever challenge here in a bit. Before we do, though, I would love to connect further. I know the new Star Wars movies are very divisive. Feel free to do that in the comments. Let me know how you loved or hated this movie, but do it with kindness, with love. We don't put up with just like straight vile bile here. That's just not part of what we do. Have wonderful dialogue and conversations about Star Wars. Feel free right here in the YouTube comments. Subscribe at YouTube. Hit me up on Twitter, Aaron Dicer, AARONDICER. Also subscribe to the podcast. It's called SiftPop, SIFTPOP. You can check that out wherever you do your podcast. Just search for SiftPop, SIFTPOP. It's a weekly pop culture podcast. We go a little more in-depth. We'll be talking Solo. We'll do a separate Solo spoilers podcast this week. We're going to have quite a bit of fun doing that. So again, search for that. And also thank you to those who support this YouTube channel. It's been so fun to kind of see this family kind of grow together. Almost to 2,500 subscribers. I know that's very puny in big YouTube terms, but for me, what a beautiful family of 2,500 people to hang out, talk movies together. It's a lot of fun. And to those who have made that possible at patreon.com/yourmoviefriend, you're a huge part of it. There are some perks there. Starts at $3 a month, so you can go check that out again at patreon.com/yourmoviefriend. All right, on to the best ever challenge, where you name the best movie ever in a particular category. I also try to identify my choice. Let's go with best ever Woody Harrelson movie. Best ever Woody Harrelson movie. I'm going to have to go with the one that eliminated an entire nation of aging dudes. And that's just sad. An entire nation of aging dudes. Take a guess at mine in the comments. First person to get it right does get a point. Also, leave your clue there as well for what yours is, or just leave your choice there so we have a discussion about it. As always, here's a few extra seconds to hit subscribe. Just click my face.